Good to see you,
Hey,
Seth.
Mike.
Good to see you too. Thanks for
All
being
right,
here.
let me just finish up this setting it up on Facebook.
Okay. We got Jerry here, the Mad Viking. Good to see you, Jerry.
Hey, Jerry, how's it going?
Hey
Long time no
everybody, how you doing?
The Mad Viking.
Yep.
Um, go, and we're just preparing the live stream, guys. Excellent. All righty. We should have a few more people joining us on here, but there's I know there's quite a few that will be tuning in on Facebook to hear how everything's doing. So let's let Mark in. Corianne, I'm just going to make you co-host as well, so that if anybody else jumps on in as we're going, we can let them in and say hi. Where's everybody calling in from today?
East Coast, Boston.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Houston. Hey, Rob. Welcome, Rob.
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Love it.
Yep.
Did I hear somebody else in Michigan?
Michigan. Hey, Seth.
Hey, Steve, what's up?
I'm over toward Willow Run Airport,
Oh yeah,
other side of Ann Arbor.
yeah, nice, good deal. Was there a air show crash there not long ago?
Yeah.
Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, it almost hit an apartment building.
Man, crazy.
Ooh.
Like
Yeah,
it landed in the parking lot.
was that like in the past year or something?
Yeah, it's very not too long ago. They fly right over my house when they're practicing.
Yeah, crazy. What kind of plane was it? Do you remember?
It was something exotic like a MiG or something, not something, it wasn't American.
Yeah.
So,
We'll start on a positive note.
let's say something nice about Michigan, huh?
Alicia,
Oh,
are you in
water.
the U.S.?
It was warm
Alicia,
up here today. How's that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
it
was
was
that,
warm up
Mike?
here.
On?
Are you in the U.S.?
I'm currently in Australia packing up my life, and in about 2 weeks' time, I'll be back stateside living. So, yeah, making the big move. And if you can hear an echo behind me, guys, it's because I have no furniture anymore. It's all been sold. So we're working like our university students at the moment on minimal things, which is lots of fun. But so I'll be East Coast, but like same time zone as you, Mike. Alrighty, guys, let's jump in. For those joining us here on the Zoom, thank you and welcome. I'll just let Ken in. And I know that there's people also tuning in on the Facebook Live as well. So whether you're watching there or if you're joining us here live, thanks so much. And a huge welcome to my friend Seth. So just a little bit of background, guys. All of you probably know Seth's name. If you don't, you need to jump onto Ari Tipster and start to absorb all of the amazing content that Seth has been putting out there since land became a thing. Because Seth, how long have you been doing land for now?
Oh man, I think like 15 years or something.
Yep.
Yeah, early
Yep.
2009.
So Seth has been through it all, guys, from back when we used to do land in a very different way to what we're doing now and how we do marketing, but the basics have often remained the same. So I've personally known Seth now for quite a few years since we did our first podcast together. Since then, we've caught up a few times in person and had some memorable times at conferences and out for dinners and doing cold plunges together. That sounds weird, I know, for anybody, but I can give you guys the context of that another time. But Seth's a great guy and what I would call a go-giver. And what I love about bringing go-givers onto calls like this is they have a servant's mindset of wanting to truly help people on their journey and help people through the ups, the downs, the sideways bumps that this industry has, but also look at it through a fresh set of eyes for someone who's been around for 15 years doing this. So Seth, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything you want to introduce about yourself before we jump into the questions?
No, not really. Yeah, just great to be here. Appreciate it inviting me on. It's great to hang out with everyone here.
Let's hang out some more and jump into some questions then. And by all means, guys, as we're going, if you do have any specific questions that you want to pop into the chat box, let us know. But I guess, Seth, let's start by 15 years of experience. Wow. What's the number one mistake that you see that's pretty consistent with land people who are just starting out?
Yeah, good question. I I mean, specifically for those who are just starting out, they probably tend to go one of two extremes. They either move way too fast or they don't move fast enough. It's kind of about finding that delicate balance of moving forward at a clip that you're comfortable with and that works with your budget and your time and all that. But yeah, I mean, usually the people who either burn out or just don't go anywhere, it's one of those two extremes. So
yeah, I think that too, but I think you can probably also liken that to anybody starting their own business, right? Because there's a lot of hurdles that you need to get through when you're starting your own business. So when you say someone goes too fast and then they burn out, what does that look like for you? When you
yeah, well, I mean, it can look a number of different ways. I mean, depending on what your marketing channel is, or even like trying to send out mail or do whatever the thing is to reach out to people before you've really done the initial steps of understanding like where might there be the best opportunities, and just doing some basic market research. I mean, it's for a certain personality type that just moves really quickly. It's very easy to gloss over some important steps. And like sometimes it's actually fine. I think if I had to be subject to one or the other, I'd rather move too fast, because at least you're doing something and you're going to learn stuff really quick, even if it's painful. At least you're moving. But
100%.
But yeah, I mean, I've totally seen people that just kind of, I don't know if they overestimated what was possible or what, but they just moved too fast. So
yeah. Yep. I think that's a really good analogy. And the whole moving too fast is, so many people I've seen just want to jump straight in and not really think about strategy, planning, time, what they want to outsource, what they want to insource, all of those things. So yeah, it's really good. Really good to go at a pace that you're comfortable with. I'm going to move to another question, which is something that a lot of people ask me, I reckon 10 times a day. It's like, where do I find motivated sellers, AJ? So what are some of your best tips for finding those motivated sellers out there? And this comes with a caveat. I'm going to put the word motivated in inverted commas these days, because here's what I've found as well, Seth, and you might agree. Not all the best deals have come from someone who is motivated. It might come from more of a relationship or a long-term conversation with that person, right? So what do you think about motivated sellers these days?
yeah, it's a good question. I think this has changed quite a bit over the years. I think in some ways, depending on what you're planning to do, like you might not even need a motivated seller. Like you just need a seller, because if you're going to make changes to it or make it more valuable, you don't necessarily need it at a huge discount. But if that's specifically what you're looking for, and that's usually what I'm looking for, just to kind of ensure the profit is there and that I'm not going to lose money. I think it's important probably not to overthink it. And I do think mail still works today. It might not work as well as it once did, but I know plenty of people who are still relying totally on that. I think it's just a matter of adjusting expectations about like how much mail it takes to get anywhere, and also just offer prices, like what a normal good offer price is now. And I think it's been challenging for a lot of people, especially who came from the olden days when it was frankly just easier and it didn't take nearly as much to get a deal. And when you have this standard in your mind of like, this is how it's supposed to work, and then it becomes a little bit harder, it's just like, whoa, hang on. It's kind of like Jean-Paul Getty said, in times of rapid change, experience is your worst enemy. And I've seen a lot of that happening. And I think the people who are like just getting into it as it's already harder, they just don't really have, that past experience as baggage. And I think maybe they still hear what other people are saying, but their firsthand experience is like they've never seen any different. So that's just how it is now.
Exactly. I love that. And that's a really brilliant quote, by the way, because, I've been doing this now for more than a decade as well. And I've seen it go through so much change in that time. And obviously with what we do at Supercharged Offers as well, we'll often have customers that have been with us for years that are like, oh, direct mail's not working anymore. And it's like, well, it is, but it's different to what it used to be. Cold calling's not working anymore. Well, it is, but you've got to change the script. It's not, that whole change the script is often something that I think about in relative to business. If the old script is not working, you've got to write a new one. And the evolution of what land is doing. And as you said, depending upon your exit strategy for that property, that might then dictate what your entry strategy is to that conversation as well. So, being on top of everything and really not taking what was working even 12 months ago and assigning that to a result today, because like anything, it goes through a cycle and it changes. Yeah. Corianne, is there any other questions you want to ask about that?
always. I'm a naturally curious person. So I mean, you're saying like kind of that the market has more competition, or at least that's what I feel like I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And with somebody who's been in the game for so long, is there something that you're doing to track that change or put yourself ahead of competitors? Because I hear that with our clients all the time is like, maybe I just need to go up to 75% offer so that I'm beating everybody else that's mailing. And I think the question is always like, especially as things shift, especially as this is way cooler now than it used to be 15 years ago, how do you stay ahead of the game and not get jaded?
Yeah. Well, yeah, a few thoughts on that. I think one thing to keep in mind is that follow-up is more important now than it's probably ever been. And this, I'm not saying anything new here. This isn't some novel idea, but just following up at all and following up again and again and again, like just that alone can unlock a lot of opportunity. And I remember the days when you really didn't have to. Like you just send one and that's it. You're done. You just move on to the next market. And it's not that you'll never find opportunities that way, but you're just walking away from a lot there. I know even myself, like it's actually a fairly normal thing that I get like the third email from somebody who's trying to like pitch me on something. And for whatever reason, like that email is the one that I notice and then I reply to them. So like if it works on me, it must work on other people too. So I think following up is pretty key, and follow up can be kind of difficult if you don't have a decent system in place to notify you when to do that, to automate when to do that, to just keep track of like, hey, what have I said to this person? What do I say next? How far do we keep going? I don't even really know how you would do it effectively without some kind of a CRM. That's one of the things I've been working on a lot with Stride that we just launched, is trying to make that easier and automated.
Yeah.
So the follow-up thing is huge. And also interesting new approaches that I never really thought of before, but I've heard about a couple over the past couple of months. I don't know if you've heard of cookie closers, but this is a thing I, recently became aware of. Josh Pierce.
Yep.
If Josh is listening, hey Josh, but he sent me this little test box of cookies, like best cookies I've ever had in my life. And the whole purpose behind this is to make yourself basically building trust. And it's really hard to not respond to somebody who sends you a box of cookies like that. And I think the cost is something like $50 to send one of these boxes. So like, it's not cheap. And this only makes sense for like super high value leads. But if there's somebody you're trying to get a hold of and it makes a big difference just to like get them on the phone versus not, like that can totally be the thing that helps you get through. When everybody else is sending some, ugly piece of mail and you send that, like it's impossible not to notice that. So, creative things like that can be kind of interesting too.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about, because you've just mentioned it there, and I think it's a perfect segue to jump in there, because CRM definitely play a role in how any business runs. And when you can really automate your workflow for your seller follow-up, your buyer follow-up, your task management, all of those things, because very quickly I've noticed in business as well, if you don't have that stuff mapped out, things just fall through the cracks very quickly. And all of a sudden, you paid X amount of dollars for a lead, but you've lost that lead because you haven't tracked it properly. So talk to us a little bit more about your inspiration behind Stride and what you were really aiming to achieve there, Seth, and how it can help people.
Yeah, for sure. It was kind of killing several birds with one stone, with one massive stone, that is Stride. But one of them was just getting rid of a lot of ongoing subscriptions to just like this and that, calendars, e-signatures, phone, all this stuff, and just bringing it under one roof for a much cheaper price. So that was one motivation. I just noticed I constantly had 50 different tabs open every single day. And it's like, let's just make it all in one spot. And that's what Stride does. It eliminates a lot of that stuff. So it's much more cost effective, and it's all integrated as well. Like any email you send, any text you send, any call you make, it's all logged under that contact in your CRM. So you can see the full history of everything that happened there. Any notes, any documents, it's all there. So from an organizational standpoint, that's pretty huge. Another part of it, though, is the automation aspect of it. Like, say if you want to only send mail or only send text or do a combination of ringless voicemail and cold calling, whatever it happens to be, there's a lot of pre-built automations in there that will use your chosen marketing channel to either send follow-up messages automatically based on the time intervals you set with the things you want to say, or it'll remind you when to do it. And again, like, I just don't know how you do this without some kind of a system or software like that to tell you. I mean, you could try to use like a giant spreadsheet and manually put it in and that kind of thing. And I've tried that before, and it's way harder. Having some kind of a system that sort of does it for you is a really big deal. So that was another big part of it. But as we're seeing people join, it's been really interesting to see the different motivations of why they're coming on board. Some people are like all gung-ho about the website, whereas other people don't care at all about that. They just want to have the texting and the call recording and transcribing, and that's what they care about. Other people care about other things. So the way the land business has become over the past few years now, it's not one business model anymore. There's like dozens of different versions of this, and different things matter to different people. So it's been kind of interesting to try to meet everyone's need with one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same with us running a data and marketing company, right? You'll have different people with different preferences for what they want to do. And what that for me comes back to is modalities and our ways of working, because you might have someone that just has a natural lean, if you like, towards doing business in a particular way, and others that have a natural lean into doing something this way. And I also think that when people play to their strengths, and this kind of leading me to the next question, when you play to your strengths, so let's say that you are someone who's awesome at sales and you're maybe working with Ajay and his program, and so you're really great at the follow-up and the sales, and that's where you want to spend your time, and you outsource other stuff. Well, that will lead you to a CRM and how you interact with that CRM in a particular way. So that kind of leads me into the whole outsourcing automation question here, Seth, because the word automation is quite big at the moment. A lot of people don't necessarily always understand what that means. So when you're automating your land business, what are some of the things that you think, you know what, you should never outsource that? Personally, for me, I think you should never outsource the final negotiation with the seller or the buyer, right? Because it's your name on the line. So what's your view on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like when I've talked about this topic with others in the past, sort of, there's like this limiting beliefs thing that comes into play where it's like, you can never do this. Like I've totally thought that about many things, but then another argument is like, never say never. You can always train somebody to do that. So, but in my mind,
we're all teachable, right?
yeah. But I mean, I don't know. You're talking to somebody right now who is not great at building teams and managing people. So like, that's part of my problem and my limiting belief is like, I'm just not that good at doing it. It's not that it can't be done. I just sort of struggle with that. So, but like the first thing that comes to mind, again, not that it can't be done, because I know it can, but something that I would be really careful about is outsourcing whoever is coming up with your comps and doing your valuation, because I see this all the time. I was looking at a deal about a week ago, thinking about funding it and looking at the different comps that this person put together for why they thought it was worth what they thought it was worth. And they had 6 different comps. And I was clicking through to a couple of them, and I saw that 2 of the 6 comps had houses on them. And like, that's why they were worth so much. And when I cut those out, the value like got cut in half. So just like stuff like that. If a person's not really well trained at what to look for in just little gotchas, and there's a lot of gotchas with land, some things you literally can't even see from a computer screen. It's just really easy to screw that up. And there is a level of uncertainty you have to get comfortable living with, but it's kind of an art to find that happy medium where it's like, I've got enough information to move forward, even though it's not everything. And I would just be really careful about finding some cheap VA and say, yeah, go for it. I'll trust my whole business to you now.
Yeah.
Oof,
Yeah. 100% agree on that one. I've seen that happen quite a few times. And I think there's a difference between kind of running data en masse where you're, because we run a lot of sales reports for customers as well, right? Where we're giving more statistical, analytical, en masse stuff, but it still needs verification. I say that with anything. Even when people are so stuck on, oh, I have to send out blind offers, and it's like, well, that's great, but that still doesn't circumnavigate the fact that when a number comes back, you've still got to verify that, right? And for me, it's the same with what you said with comping. You can outsource that stuff, but you still have to have a level of quality assurance around it. And whether or not somebody does it, and as you said, you then eyeball them and go, yep, that's a good one, but no, take out these, that's not good. there's still got to be a level of checking with everything, because trust me when I say, I've gone through deals over many years where things weren't checked to the level that they should have been. And it was tens and thousands of dollars of a mistake, so it's not, not talking just little mistakes here, guys. So it can be big. Is there anything else, Seth, that you would never outsource?
Oh man, probably. I mean, you make a good point about having that final negotiation call, or just any negotiation call when you're trying to hash out details. I mean, it takes a bit of skill, not just your own verbal ability to talk, but even just thinking through things on the fly. It's not an idiot-proof task by any means. But I think usually like most of the problems are like the, big traumatic issues I've ever seen or heard of in the land business. It usually boils down to a due diligence issue where somebody just didn't catch it, whether it was laziness or just, it was really hard to see. That's the one I keep coming back to in terms of like, I just be super careful about who that gets outsourced to. I know like when I used to work in banking, the process we would go through to approve a deal before we would lend millions on it, it would go through like so many different layers of scrutiny. Like there was me, the initial person, there was the loan officer, then our loan committee, and then our board, and then the next loan. So we're talking like almost a couple dozen people would have to look at it, and we still got it wrong sometimes. So it's like, it's just one of those things, like it's hard to be too careful. I think if your business grinds to a halt because you're overcautious, like that's probably when you've gone too far. But just realizing like to make good decisions, you need a lot of advisors on your side to give you different input from different angles.
Yeah, I agree. And I always say to people, don't outsource something that you're not willing to do yourself first. Because here's the thing with outsourcing and trying to automate things, right? Even when you're thinking about an automation in a system like Stride, you still need to understand how that process works or how that workflow works so that you can monitor, well, is it working? Is it efficient? If I've got a VA that's doing that task for me, I still need to be able to give feedback on performance and things like that. So whenever anyone's starting out in their business, I always say, look, where possible, try and do everything yourself to begin with, but not at a pace that you're about to burn out. And then start to lean into, well, what's the stuff I want to keep versus the things that I want to outsource, and then write your SOPs and everything around that. So yeah, Corianne, I can see you're off mute. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, I want to pop in here for Mark because he had a good question that's related to this data. So, I mean, it's definitely a part of our bread and butter in terms of how we take care of our clients is going after data lists and making sure they're in the right place and compliant for outreach. Talk to me about Stride. Does the customer bring their own data? Is it already built in? And then maybe part two to that question is, where do you suggest people go for the data to comp, since that is so important?
Yeah, totally. Well, to answer your question, Mark, the data source is the customer's choice. So whatever you want to use, it's totally fine. If you've got something you're comfortable with or that you trust, that's the thing to do. Stride is not the medium through which you pull the data. It's the thing that holds all the data once you have exported it. So it basically just holds and keeps track of everything. So really, wherever you want to go is fine. I'm partial to the land portal, but there's plenty of good options out there.
Loads of good options. Yeah. And we can certainly, like a lot of the stuff that we do, guys, we've got a lot of people on this call that are already existing customers. Like we will do all the data for you and work with you on the strategy and then give that to you in a format that you can easily just upload to Stride. So that everything is centralized. So yeah, that's great. Let's talk about the land portal, because you've mentioned that. And often people are looking for what's the best thing out there at the moment. And this, look, and Seth, you and I can commiserate. I don't know if commiserate's the right word, but we can probably joke about this. 15 years ago when you started and 10 years ago when I started, there was probably a half dozen tools out there related to vacant land, right?
Yeah.
But these days there is so many that it can get a little bit overwhelming. So talk to us about why you feel the land portal is your choice, and what's some of the hidden gems inside of it that you really like?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't know how many people on this call or listening have used it before, but the thing that has really gotten me is that it's the first data service that I discovered over a year ago now. One for filtering and exporting lists that was like built specifically for land investors, which means a lot of the filters and tools in there are things that not many other people care about except for land investors or people who are somehow in the land business. Say if you're a land agent or a civil engineer or something like that. So, for example, one of the filters that I love is the slope reports, where you can create, a detailed report showing using the LiDAR satellite imagery, the slope percentages of whatever property you're looking at anywhere in the country. But also, you can filter your entire list that way to say, hey, if any property has more than like a 15% slope through over half of it, don't include it on my list, which is kind of amazing when you think about it, because when you think about the buildability of a property, and this is something I didn't really even grasp until I built my first development, but it's a huge deal, the slope. I mean, it can totally sabotage the buildability. You can technically build on anything, no matter how steep it is, it just gets way more expensive. And, flat to mild slope is really what you want. So there's no crazy engineering costs with that. And if you buy a property with a really steep slope, just think about the next guy or girl who's going to buy that thing. Think about the cost they're going to have to incur to use it for what they want to use it for. Like, you should be forward thinking and considering that when you buy the property, because it's going to make your life way harder. So if it's one of those things, you can just catch it from the outset. And like, that's one of dozens of different things. I actually like it the best as a due diligence tool, because it's kind of like taking the best parts of land ID and the best parts of data tree and mashing them together and making it cheaper. And it's just it's something I have open every single day, and it's been wildly helpful. And the price is really good. It's better than just about anything I know, and there's no 12-month commitment necessary, none of that stuff. So I think it's totally worth checking out. At the very least, doing a free trial just to see, hey, what's here? Is this something that can help me?
Love it. Love it. Now, I feel like there's a story in your answer, because you mentioned about, wish I had known this when I did my first development. Being that you have done some ground up stuff, Seth, and there's some people on this call that are doing some entitlement, ground up work, etc. What's your learnings there, or maybe it's sharing one of those developments and stuff that you thought, oh, if I do that again, I'd do that differently.
Yeah, for sure. So when I bought the vacant lot that I used to build my self-storage facility, it was 6.7 acres, and I got it for $69,000. And the location was pretty good, so there was no like big obvious problems with it. But going back to that slope, that was the problem. It cost over $400,000 just to fix the slope issues, to like flatten it out. And after I paid that massive bill, it was kind of when the light bulb went off. It's like, wow, I could have just paid like 3 times more for the same size property, maybe in a better location that just didn't have these slope issues. And so that was one biggie, but there were tons of takeaways from that. Everything from the importance of communicating and trusting your general contractor and every single person that they hire. Just the importance of hitting reply all on emails so that everybody's aware of things. Just like super basic rudimentary stuff. You'd be shocked at how easy it is for people to just drop the ball on this and not do it. And then people get mad at each other. And like, my project actually went pretty smooth all in all. It wasn't no big disasters or anything, but construction it's not for the faint of heart. Like, there's a lot that goes into that, especially when you're building something like what I was, where you open it up and it's making no money on day one, and it doesn't make much money for the first year. It's kind of a gamble, really. I mean, it's not a gamble from the standpoint of if you do your homework, you can pretty well predict what's going to happen, but still, like, there's no guarantees. And it's just a very different thing than the mindset of most land flippers who are just buying land, doing nothing, and selling it. Like, that's way, way, way simpler than building anything.
Yeah. And I remember you presented that at the Milk and Honey conference last year. And at that stage, it was like, yep, okay, it's finished. It's good. Has it turned around for you, Seth? Is it starting to produce now?
Yeah, good question. It has. We stopped losing money back in like January or something of this year. So it's officially cash flow positive, and it only took $450,000 and 3 years of waiting to get there. So
awesome. Yeah. And I guess congratulations, by the way, for having such fabulous patience around that. But here's the lesson that I often hear with stories like this, right? Sometimes when you run your numbers initially for something like that and you have these big grand plans, sometimes it doesn't always turn out as what we think. And you do have to employ some patience and some leaning into the uncertainty around it and holding tight, right? Because these things can take time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Corianne, where do you want to take the conversation next? Because we've got lots we want to unpack with Seth.
So you talked right at the beginning in terms of people like maybe going too fast, and then you talk about this big project. Can you kind of give us almost like a roadmap of like when to maybe say no to too large of a project? What are the things that you should be able to like say I've done first before you're taking on a project like that?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, it's a great example too, because building something like that it's a huge decision, big undertaking. And that whole process it was at least 3 years in the making, from like the moment I decided I want to do self-storage to the moment that I like bought the property and we started doing it. It was about that long. And part of what I went through, a few different stages. So there's something called a feasibility study. And this is something that is fairly common when you start a new business that takes lots of money. Some banks will even require you to do it. It's a super in-depth study where a third party, an outside professional, comes in. They look at all the numbers, all the projections. They understand that industry, in my case, self-storage. They understand the cost to build. They understand supply and demand, all the stuff. They make this giant report explaining, recapping what I'm trying to do and what they predict it's going to look like how much it'll cost, how long it will take to fill up. They look at the local competitors, and it's just like a massive bundle of knowledge that doesn't guarantee anything, but it's just saying, hey, somebody who really knows what they're doing has looked at this. And at the very end, there's some kind of a conclusive statement about like, this is probably a good idea, or like, this is a terrible idea because of all these things. Don't do it. And I paid $6,300 for mine. Normally they're $7,000. And the thing was, though, before I even did that, I did my own version of a feasibility study. So I knew a lot of the numbers to look at. I did a lot of this work ahead of time, but I'm also not, at least at the time, I was not an industry expert. And there's just a lot of blind spots that I have, and I'm biased. I mean, I want this to happen. So what if I just fudge the numbers to make it look good? So, I think it was really helpful for me to go through those motions just to kind of exercise that muscle. But then seeing that third party do it and confirm what I had said, it was like, okay, we're good. We're on the right track. And after that, before I got started, I hired some consultants in the self-storage business who help people build stuff like this. And that was super helpful because they could stand over my shoulder, and they were even like on the initial calls with my bank. And when my bank would have questions before they approved me, not only did they have the feasibility study and also me, but they had these consultants behind me, and they could answer some of the hard questions. And that was super reassuring to the bank to say, look, this isn't just some dumb guy who has money and he's trying to make this work. Like, these people are behind him and they know what they're talking about. And it was really just one step after another of then finding, a good general contractor that I could trust, and then finding the company to supply the buildings and then install them and all this. And it's kind of interesting. Like, as I look back on it, it seems like this massive thing that I did, but it was really just one step at a time. Every week there was a new part of it to work on. And in each one of those steps, there was the potential for the deal to get derailed or set back or cost to change. And there was a little bit of that happened, but not really. Like, it was mostly fine. I was able to lock in my interest rate right before the war in the Ukraine started and interest rates started going up. So that was like my saving grace, is that the money I had was pretty cheap money, relatively speaking. But yeah, it was a super fun adventure, and I learned a lot, and I'd love to do it again because I feel like I could do it a lot better now.
Now that you've been through that experience and absolutely have so many years of experience in this, what would you say to the newbie who's sitting in front of their comping sheet and thinking, maybe I'll go under contract and just fudge the numbers this direction? Because I think especially when we're new, we've all been in that place where you're like, well, maybe this one comp is better than the other 20. And it's scarier when you've put in $7,000 and a lot of the work that you did in comparison to maybe putting something under contract for $50. but still it's always, it depends on what level you are. That's still a risk for maybe a newbie. So can you look over their shoulder and give them a little advice if they're in that place?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, maybe it's not an exact comparison, but it seems like the person who would fudge the numbers in their favor might be the type who moves too fast, and the person who's too conservative moves too slow. Like those just kind of seem like similar camps. But
Mm,
yeah, I mean, kind of like when I start anything big, like I try to get a lot of different advisors to, see things that I don't see, and people who they don't necessarily care that much if I do it or not. They don't have like a bias, like, yes, Seth, do it, because then we'll get paid more. There's none of that. It's just like,
mm,
yeah, I objectively think this is the way it is. This is what I would do. And the more of those people you can get involved, the better. And as for like a land investor, um, I think there's a bunch of different ways to do this. I mean, you could get in a mastermind group, you could hire a coach, you could talk with a funder who might want to fund your deal. But I would just make sure that whoever this person is that you're asking for input, that they've got the experience and that they don't have like a reason to say yes or no. Like it's just objectively what they think. Like they're not going to get paid if you end up doing it. So yeah, I would just kind of keep that bias out of the picture. But really just, yeah, getting people who can give you their wisdom is super important.
board of
Love
directors,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And for those
Thank you.
that haven't been, like every other Tuesday, so this is another Tuesday call, but every other Tuesday we have our deal or no deal call for just that reason, Seth, where people can bring their deals on. A bunch of awesome friends and funders that you and I both know will give you that advice, because they've got nothing to gain or lose by giving you that advice, right? And that sometimes unbiased, unfiltered approach is a good thing.
Yeah.
I do want to jump to a question that Jean's got here in the chat box as well. Thanks, Jean. So she's asking, do you think Land Portal is better than Priced? I've got both Land ID, she got grandfathered in, which is great. Would it be a good idea to get Land Portal and drop Priced and Land ID?
Well, I would say you could start a free trial and try it out and see if it is filling the needs that you're getting met by those other ones. So yeah, in terms of like comparing it to other software, it's interesting because there is overlap and also not overlap with a lot of other things out there. Some things are only at the land portal, like the slope thing, for example. Nobody else has that. There's other things though where you could get it elsewhere. For example, with Priced, I believe a lot of people use that just for the sake of pricing offers. Like at scale, like doing a lot of that at once. There's probably ways to use the land portal for that, but like I don't think that's the number one use case for why people go there. It's more of like a data tree or a land ID replacement tool. And even land ID, like there are certain things land ID can do that the land portal can't, but it's a fairly narrow margin. Like there's not a lot that differentiates the two. And the cool thing about the land portal is I've been in touch with the Apke brothers about this, just talking to them ongoing, giving them feedback, and they're super responsive. Like they want to hear it and they do it, which is like unheard of for a lot of these companies. Like they don't really care. They have their thing. They're sort of fat and lazy and just do what they want to do. But they've just been really awesome at like relentlessly pursuing innovation and giving people what they want. And that's super encouraging because we need that in the land space.
100%. 100%. And that leads on to another question. I'm just, Mark Hudson, you put, what about boots on the ground? I'm just putting a link into the chat box here, guys, for Investor Boots. Investor Boots does a lot of boots on the ground stuff that you can really get some good traction on. So if you don't want to send a box of cookies, you could even just get someone from Investor Boots to go and deliver a box of cookies. So yeah, lots of really good stuff there. So Steve Lees is kind of taking your response there, Seth, one level further. What does Land ID do that the Land Portal doesn't? Are you familiar enough with both tools to answer?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's a good question. I'm trying to think back to Land ID. So I know currently the Land ID has a mobile app. The Land Portal doesn't yet. I think that's on their roadmap, but it's not currently there. The only other major thing I can think of, so in Land ID, when you can create and save a map and like share it with people, you can do that with Land Portal too. But the difference with Land ID is you can like add these like notes on the parcel, like little icons, and like put pictures and stuff on it, which I've actually never even used that, but you could do it. But I'm trying to think what else. there's probably something else, but those are like the big things. I know the actually, yeah. So the land ID has a lot more layers and filters you can put over it. But I've found that a lot of the ones that the land portal doesn't have are ones that I don't really necessarily use that much anyway. So I think they've done a good job of focusing on the most important ones.
They have their AI filter too.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
big
for
one, really.
landlocked and for road frontage, and even like looking at the map to understand, is there a house on this or not? Regardless of what the county data says, you can go by what it sees on the map. So.
Yeah, no, there's some good stuff there. I guess just to wrap up a little bit of a focus on systems and stuff, is there the one tool or software, Seth, that you'd never give up in your land business?
Well, probably the land portal and Stride. I mean, now that they both exist, they didn't exist, years ago, but knowing what's possible with both of them, it's like, man, that would really stink if I just suddenly lost access to that. It'd make life a lot harder than it needs to be. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Love it.
So I just want to kind of continue the conversation for the newbie who, okay, they comped it right, they got it under contract. Let's say it's maybe their first or second one, and we all know that feeling. And especially for the people that go that fast, as soon as you hit that point, you're like, never thought of a buyer's list. So on the other side of the story, what would you recommend for building a buyer's list, or where should they go once they've had that mini win and they don't want to fall off the cliff of being disappointed they don't know the next step?
Sure. So, I mean, are you asking like the mechanics of how to build one, or like the best place to find people to add to your list, or
I think
neither?
both questions
Both?
are really like, where would you even go to start one? Or do you even suggest that? Or would you use a different method completely?
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends on the property type you're dealing with, and also like the volume of properties you actually have to sell. That was something I found in my first couple of years. I was like gung ho about building this VIP buyers list, and I did, but I didn't have enough inventory to sell them. So I was just like doing a lot of work, and I didn't really even have anything to tell these people. Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're having a conversation with a potential seller, I mean, it's always worth understanding more about what do you want and where are you looking,
Yeah.
what markets and what sizes, what's your budget, and take notes on that stuff and get it in your system. I also think it's kind of a no-brainer, but a lot of people don't do it. Just to have a form or something on your selling website where people can enter their own information and even tag themselves in terms of what they want. And again, this kind of thing would be kind of hard to keep track of if you didn't have some kind of a CRM system to keep track of those tags, so that once the people are tagged appropriately and you understand what each person actually wants, you can send the relevant emails or texts to the relevant people so that they're only hearing about the stuff that they want to hear about.
Yeah.
So yeah. And there's other like,
I think that.
what's that?
Go, Seth.
I was just gonna say there's other like red hat ways of building a list that I've never explored, but I hear from people who do it. So if you're willing to break some rules, there's ways to do it.
I'm going to add to your answer there selfishly for two reasons. So buyerfinder.io go. Buyerfinder.io is a really cool tool that you can just put in your property, find all of the neighbors in a radius, it cleanses the data, does all the cash buyers in an area and sends out marketing as well. But I would also echo what Seth said. So when you do have a property, make sure that as people are inquiring about that property, even if that property is not the right one for them, find out what their list is, find out that buy box criteria and start to build that out in your systems, because then if you can start to have an approach where you use a buyer first approach to your marketing, it does make a bit of a difference at the end of the day. So yeah, really like that.
Great way to do market research. I wasn't even thinking about utilizing it for starting in the first place, as to making sure you know your market.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah. 100% Korean. Yeah. All right. I guess a couple of key questions here. And I think one thing that a lot of people want to get into this business for, Seth, as we know, is the three freedoms. People want time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, which is great. But to own your own business, we often don't get those three freedoms starting out, definitely. So what's some advice that you'd have to someone who wants to scale their business and get to those freedoms, but without losing their personal freedom along the way? Because let's face it, things can get pretty busy pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most of the time that I've wasted and the freedom that I've lost has kind of just been from not having good systems in place. And any movement that would happen required some kind of manual action for me. Like if I didn't move my mouse and click the buttons and do the stuff, nothing would happen. And I think, if that's how your business is going to work, then yeah, you're going to be limited in how far you can go. There's the issue of like hiring people and knowing when to do that and finding the right person and managing them well and all this stuff. But a good amount of that can actually be circumvented just by having the right systems in place that automate stuff without needing people at all. And that's, we've been getting into a really interesting, exciting time where you can do more and more of that with AI. So that'll be cool to see as that continues to move along. But but I think always thinking through the lens of like, how can this be done without me having to physically be here in this time and place and do it? And there's lots of potential answers to that, but you're not going to find answers unless you start thinking that way, first of all.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I guess for you, when you think back over your journey with doing vacant land, is there anything that you would have done differently in retrospect?
So, yeah, I think so. I probably would have started funding deals earlier. I remember having these conversations like 5 years ago. Like, hey, Seth, these just fund deals. And I don't know what I was thinking. It just, at the time, nobody was really doing that. And it just seemed like this new scary thing. And I didn't want to, partner with the wrong person. And what if a deal went sideways and everything blew up? And I'm cursed with this brain that thinks of all these worst case scenarios. And so I just kind of sat back and watched a lot of people do really well with it. And it took me a long time to realize, oh yeah, that's actually a really cool idea, Seth. And you've got the network and connections to do this pretty easily. So I think that's something I would have started a long time ago. And I kind of missed out a lot by not.
That for me comes back to the whole concept of the velocity of money, right? And that's how do you make your money work for you and keep recycling that money so it grows every time. And I often say to people, doing land is a great way to build cash flow, but then what do you plan on doing with that? So yeah, love that you're doing that. And I might even talk to you about coming along to our Tuesday deal or no deal calls, because that's all about funding deals. So
cool.
we'll see if we can get you on there. Yeah. Corianne can give you some more info on that as well. Awesome. Corianne, is there anything you want to ask on that?
No, not particularly. Honestly, I'm just loving the conversation right now. So, yeah, thank you. This has been really great. I do want to make sure that we note that we do have a stop today. So if somebody's got questions, now is the time to hop into the chat, join the conversation, soak up all the goodness that is Seth's brain.
Yeah. Let's go into some of the deals that you're doing then, Seth. So what's your favorite type of land deal at the moment? What's your flavor of the month?
Yeah. So I love deals that I don't have to find, but I can fund them. Because it's actually kind of mind blowing when you see the different people out there that need funding. And like some of these deals are amazing. They're really cool properties. And I don't even know what they're doing to find these things, but it's really cool that they came across my desk and that I had a chance to take a shot at it and work with them. So, that's what I've been focusing on in 2025, and it's been really cool.
Yeah. And those types of deals that are coming across your desk, which is wonderful. It's great when business just comes your way, isn't it? But what are the types of deals that you're seeing that are getting you excited? Is it entitlement deals? Is it more leaning into recreational land? Is it more infill lots? Are we seeing builders start to do more now?
Yeah, a lot of them have been like just minor subdivide type properties. So like not super simple, but not terribly complicated either. And it's also interesting to see some of the assumptions that people come to the table with, like for a typical subdivide deal. If you were to do that in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's certain assumptions you can make about how quickly those properties would sell. If you do the same thing in rural Michigan, and if you make those same assumptions about how fast it's going to sell, you're going to be very disappointed because it's not going to sell that quick in Michigan. But just like understanding some of the differences between those markets is a huge deal. And when you see people coming into a slower market for the first time without understanding like just some of the drawbacks of just this less buyer interest, it doesn't mean it'll never sell, but like don't expect it to be quite as easy as if you're working in a red hot market. But just being able to have that perspective over the years and understanding the difference, it's kind of nice to be able to be that voice in the room that can sort of
Yeah.
talk sense into people a little bit.
And that just comes with experience, right? And I think
Yeah.
for anyone that's listening right now that's like, but I don't have that yet, I don't know that yet, it's okay, it will come. The more deals that you do, the more people you talk to, the more that you lean into your networks and stuff, that experience just naturally will happen by proxy of hanging around the right people, I often say, and soaking up that knowledge as you go. And I guess for any landowner out there who is feeling overwhelmed with that stuff at the moment, Seth, like, you know, what market do I do? How do I assess this deal compared to this deal? You know, people can get really in their heads and overwhelmed very easily in all types of real estate, but also in vacant land. What's kind of the first bit of advice you tell them to either fix or focus on?
Yeah, just if they feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess it kind of depends on why they're feeling the overwhelm. Like if it's because of just a lack of understanding, or if it's because like they don't have the money. You know, I talked to some people that are like that. It's like the money just isn't there to do anything. Like they've got hardly two coins to rub together. So it sort of depends on what the issue is. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like anything. You just have to start with one step at a time and just keep incrementally moving forward in some direction.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to confuse, you know, reading and listening and watching a lot of videos with taking action, but they're not the same thing. Like you got to actually move and do something to move the needle forward each day. And I think there is a point early on when like you just don't know enough to do that. But at some point, like keep yourself accountable. Make sure like, what did I do today to make a change or implement something in this business? Whether it's, you know, downloading a list or I don't know, calling the county or something.
Yeah.
Money
I
making
actually really love that
activities.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so right, Karen. I love that answer for a few reasons. So one of them is the difference between learning and doing. You know, I think it's great that people want to absorb lots of content and get out there and do all different things. You know, we've had some people that wanted to work with us, and they're like, we do want to get started, but let me just go and do this, you know, let me go and do another course. And part of me is always like, well, at what point do you think you've got enough to just get started, right? Just to put one foot in front of the other and take that first step. And for me, sometimes it's that balance of, you know, you don't need to know everything to take that first action step. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like you want to talk about learning, like doing it will teach you things so much faster than any
Exactly.
course or content ever will. And it's experience you can't really argue with because like it's your experience. It's not something somebody told you. Like you know this firsthand because you did it. So it's very empowering even to try something and like mess it up. It's still empowering because like
Yeah.
you know now and you have that experience to stand on.
Yeah. Love that. I love that. All right. We spoke a little bit about marketing. As we know, there's lots of different ways out there to go and get deals at the moment. There's the direct mail, cold calling, texting, digital marketing, all of them. If you could only pick one, which one would you pick, Seth?
Yeah, good question. So I like direct mail the best just because I feel like it's the easiest thing to, I don't know, it's just like a comfortable, worn out old shoe type thing.
Yep.
That doesn't mean it's like the most effective. It's definitely not the cheapest. Like it's got some big drawbacks in some ways, depending on if you got a super limited budget. But like if I could just snap my finger and have one thing and it would always work, direct mail would be awesome.
Yeah. And it's about, for me, finding the right strategy in direct mail at the moment too. Like we've got a number of different mail pieces that we're doing for customers that are getting a little bit more creative because just like the sending out the cookies, you've got to think, how do I stand out and differentiate from what everyone else out there is doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Let's wrap up then, Seth, because I love this. And I think this is probably a nice, wise conversation considering you've been doing this for so long, or a nice, wise question. It's one piece of advice that if you were to give your younger self when you were first starting out, now that you reflect back, what's a golden nugget that you would just be like, Seth, just think about this?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things I could say about that. And this might not be anything novel, but I think if you want to be the best and or go far at anything, try to focus on that one thing. Because the more you spread yourself out and spread yourself thin, the quality of everything you say yes to goes down. And I say this as a total hypocrite because like I try to do way too much, but it's just something to be aware of, you know, like if you really want to go far, like pick a thing and stick to it and stay in your lane. I think there's definitely a time and a place to like look around and see what else is out there, but just understand that, you know, the quality of everything you say yes to will go down. And whatever you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else, which is very easy to miss and not even realize.
Mhm. And that for me also leads into like the bright shiny syndrome, right? There's so many things that people go, I'm going to give that a try. But if it hasn't yielded the results after a short space of time, they jump to the next thing. And it's like, you know, sometimes you just got to stick with something for a bit longer and really assess if that's working for you before you just jump out, right? So yeah, saying
Yeah.
yes to the right stuff and no to that is what also comes to mind for me without going into that bright shiny syndrome. So yeah. Really cool. Corey, and any other final questions you want to leave with Seth?
No, I think that was like the perfect cherry on top of the sundae of this conversation. But I do want to let everybody know that's going, ooh, I need a CRM in Stride, or oh, I want to know more about the land portal, anything like that. It's coming to your inboxes after this call. Also, if you need help in taking action and you want to talk to one of our amazing strategists about your next step in lead generation, Zeke's link is in the call. He's here. You can also end up talking to me. We love just helping you strategize and take action on implementation, not just education. And thank you guys for spending the last hour with us. It means a lot to us. And Seth, thank you so much. Amazing
course.
gems today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Seth. Thank you for always just being such a go-giver and sharing of your wisdom and your experience. And you know, personally for me, I started watching your stuff nearly a decade ago, and that's one of the things that got us into doing land and doing that very first podcast with you, which is probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. But you know, watching you personally grow your own brand and your own business has been nothing short of inspiring. And I know that you're very humble, but you definitely have changed people's lives out there. And we really would just want to recognize that and appreciate that in you.
Yeah, that's awesome, dear. Thanks for the kind words. Thanks for following along. Everybody out there, anybody, if I've ever helped you, just thanks for hanging out with me. It's been great.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, everyone, thanks so much for your time, folks. I know we had a hard stop at the hour and we're just 1 minute shy of that. So have a wonderful rest of your evening, folks. And thanks again for everyone. Those tuning in on Facebook, thanks for tuning in. And we will speak with you all again soon.
Thanks, Seth.